And just a couple things to mention before we start. If you could all please keep your microphones muted during the meeting to avoid any background noise, that would be great. We have a lot to cover in this 2-hour time frame, so I did not build a break into the meeting. And then also, please use the meeting chat function through the meeting for any questions or comments you may have. We've built in some time toward the end of the meeting for open discussion and Q&A and comments. So if you have those, please use that meeting chat function. For those of you that were like me up rather late or perhaps all night watching election returns, I apologize for the timing of the meeting. I'm not sure, Director Marchbanks, how we chose this morning at 9 o'clock for the meeting. I'll blame Carrie for that. But looks like we have a good attendance and smiling faces, and I've got a cup of coffee here as well to keep me going. So anyway, let me be the very first to welcome all of you to this very first meeting of the Ohio Traffic Safety Council, and certainly thank you all for your time and commitment to serving the people of Ohio. Keeping everyone safe on Ohio's roadways was clearly one of Governor DeWine's first priorities that he communicated to me when we first talked about me being director at Public Safety. And the creation of this state-level council to address traffic safety challenges was a vision Governor DeWine brought to reality through his executive order. And Governor DeWine asked me to share this brief message with you before we get started. Let's try again, Joe.
We are.
Sorry about that.
Mute his mic.
Still not hearing anything.
All right.
Your audio. I shared the audio.
Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. All right, well, sorry about that. It worked so perfectly at all of our trial runs, but that happens in this day and age of virtual meetings. But trust me, Governor DeWine had a very nice message for all of us, and we'll hope to get that out to all of you at a later time, or maybe later today if we figure out the technology. But you know, but we are incredibly fortunate to have such strong support from our governor, and it really, I think, provides us with a unique opportunity to impact traffic safety. And this unprecedented support that we have from the governor comes at a time when we're all facing our uncertain future with challenges that are oftentimes straining our resources. To be successful in this critical endeavor, I think we must join forces by sharing ideas and working together to save lives. It's my belief that by bringing together federal, state, county, local traffic safety partners, along with our safety advocates, we can better coordinate our efforts. Many of you have already created and sustained effective programs and initiatives, and we hope to learn from one another, support one another, and increase collaboration. Many issues impact traffic safety, obviously. High-profile events, individual advocacy efforts, and recent trends can shift that focus away sometimes from core reduction efforts. The Ohio Traffic Safety Council will focus on efforts that will have the greatest impact on saving lives. Data analysis will drive tangible efforts. And these efforts will take many forms based on what we call the 4 E's of traffic safety: education, enforcement, engineering, and emergency response. And a critical key partner in traffic safety and a valuable member of this council, of course, is our Ohio Department of Transportation Director, Jack Marchbanks. Director Marchbanks and his team work very closely with us on many, many efforts, and I'm so happy to call him a partner and a good neighbor here on the hilltop. I'll now turn it over to Director Marchbanks for some opening remarks. Director.
Thank you, Tom. Can everyone hear me? Very good. Want to make sure we have audio. As it's a privilege, first of all, to be on this first meeting with everyone on the Ohio Traffic Safety Council. I really believe that this will mark this first meeting, and all the work we do in the upcoming weeks and months will be seen as the giant step that Ohio made toward making our roadways safer for motorists, cyclists, motorcyclists, and pedestrians. As stewards of the transportation system here in Ohio, we call ourselves we call it IOOs, infrastructure owner operators. Everyone who moves in this state touches our system every day, whether they're traveling, recreating, or taking part in economic activity. We are responsible for one of those 4 E's that Director Stickrath talked about: infrastructure, engineering. So what are we doing about it? One of the things my late father always says: once you've identified the problem, what are you going to do about it? And how and when? So with that, I think Carrie is going to be managing my PowerPoint. I'd like to move to our first slide. Well, there we go. Action plan. What are we doing? What is ODOT doing to address this problem? We have literally, let's move to the next slide. We literally have hundreds of initiatives underway statewide to address both our traditional and growing safety concerns. And of course, I'm going to highlight a few of them for you today. Again, with Governor DeWine's focus on safety on our transportation system, he led the way, more than helped, he led the way in making it possible for ODOT to have the 3rd largest safety program in the entire United States. Only behind Texas and California we sit in terms of the numbers of dollars that we invest in our transportation system. And we're addressing those problems, we think, smartly. We're doing spot and systemic safety improvements on our roadways throughout the state. All right, our next slide. In our annual safety program, we're funding safety improvements that have become known as the governor's list of 150 safety improvements, 150 intersections. And one thing that we've found over the past decade or so, those problems, we think, smartly. We're doing spot. Why am I getting a delay here? On our roadways All right. That's the first time that ever happened that I got a replay. We're addressing these particular safety issues with what we call our roundabouts. Roundabouts really are important because they help reduce what we call T-bone crashes, where someone crashes into the side of another vehicle. It forces people to slow down. It forces them to be more careful going through intersections. This is important because 30% of fatal crashes occur at intersections. And one of the things we've been happy to do here at ODOT is work with our local governments, work with cities and counties, and even townships. We were on a call with the Township Association just this past Monday, working with them to put dollars into those projects that they identified. And we're funding several of those projects 100%. Again, with the extra revenue we received from the motor vehicle fuel tax increase as a result of the governor's leadership and the support of the Ohio General Assembly, we have the extra revenue to put into not only those roundabouts, but into sign and signal upgrades. And we're excited about using better materials, brighter, more reflective signage, and we're really excited about using state-of-the-art wet, dark, reflective pavement markers. Many of you have driven at night when it's raining and it's hard to see pavement markings. We are working on putting down better, brighter, reflective pavement markings throughout the state. Again, most of the roads, most of the crashes that we talk about, even though the interstate crashes get a lot of attention, and unfortunately many of them are very tragic and very, very ghastly. Most of the crashes happen on local roads. So ODOT is happy to be in the cities and townships, and we've awarded more than $100 million to local governments, 100% funding these projects, a record amount in the state of Ohio. We're upgrading traffic signals, building turn lanes, roundabouts, arc cuts, and we are currently embarking on another round of funding for next year that will put another $100 million of the citizens' tax revenues into these projects that will improve safety. Next slide. Again, I talked about high visibility pavement markings. We're piloting recessed wet reflective markings on state roads, and studies in other states and throughout the country have found that these brighter pavement markings, you can see just how much better they are in dangerous wet conditions at night. Again, part of the reason why these markings are important is that people have to know where the road is. So when you can delineate the road, you reduce the possibility of traffic deaths due to roadway departure. And roadway departure, leaving the roadway, hitting a ditch, hitting a pole, hitting some object outside the roadway results in 50% of the traffic deaths throughout the state. We're working with county engineers to identify ways we can upgrade pavement markings everywhere, not just on our roads, but on county roads as well. Next slide, please. Thanks to the leadership of Representative Tim Ginter and his legislation, House Bill 51, Ohio is expanding its use of centerline rumble strips on high-speed two-lane roads across the state. Between 2016 and 2018, Ohio had 186 deaths involving head-on and sideswipe crashes. Tragically, we just had one of those down in Meigs County on US 33, I think yesterday. So while these cannot prevent every crash, because some crashes are just due to fatal driver error, rumble strips are being effective, and we're looking forward to putting them everywhere they are deemed to be effective by our engineering teams. Again, rumble strips can reduce all types of crashes by 10%. Next slide. Of course, one thing that we've all been hearing about and reading about and seeing on our television news are the pedestrian injuries and fatalities due to inattention by drivers. We're looking at doing our part in terms of engineering as much safety into the system as we can by investing in technology, high PED activated signals. You've all seen these where if a pedestrian approaches a crosswalk, a flashing strobe light will activate, alerting drivers that a pedestrian is near the crosswalk or is starting to enter it. We're looking at similar type projects at more than 500 locations across the state. And what we learn from these installations will be refined. If it goes well, we'll help more cities in the future in regards to these more visible, more high-tech crosswalks for particularly our children, our students who walk to and from schools. And let's go to distracted driving. We're working apace to encourage safer driving by implementing distracted driving corridors. Working with Director Stickrath and Colonel Fambro, we have established 12 corridors across the state where we're letting motorists know that the Ohio State Highway Patrol will be watching, will be surveilling the area to make sure that people are looking at the road and not their phone when they're driving, 70, 80 miles an hour down our interstates and US routes. Again, we think this is a great first step in regard to hopefully distracted driving legislation that will occur here soon. And we are huge advocates of this. Corridors like this remind drivers to keep their hands on the wheel and their attention on the road. The one thing that we know is that these are effective. The state's first safety corridor on I-76 and I-80 up around Youngstown, Lordstown area saw a 30% reduction in deaths and serious injuries caused by crashes once we installed that safety corridor where we were strictly enforcing speeding and distracted driving. Next slide. Again, Director Stickrath, thank you for the opportunity to present some of the things that we're doing to engineer as much safety into the system as we can, but ODOT is going to do more than that. We are going to help educate. In fact, we will evangelize when it comes to making sure that people understand their responsibility when they're driving is to drive, to be a good citizen, to make sure that you're paying attention to everything around you. Again, ODOT stands ready to do everything we can. And as I said at the outset, I do believe the establishment of this Traffic Safety Council and the things that we will undertake over the next few weeks and months will mark a giant step toward zero deaths on our roadways. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Director. Thanks for all the great work you and your team are doing at ODOT and your wonderful partnership with public safety. We appreciate it. In fact, Jack, your comments were so compelling, we decided to start replaying them right while you're talking. So
that's okay. I saw that recording. I said, okay, are they instantaneously recording or doing a playback?
and having said that, our tech folks tell me that we think we can get the governor on here. So let's make one more try at Governor DeWine.
Hello, I'm Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, and welcome to the first meeting of the Ohio Traffic Safety Council. Thank you so very much for being here. Thank you for what you do each and every day to enhance safety and improve the lives of Ohioans. Keeping our roadways safe is challenging. We know the contributing factors: speed, impairment, distraction, inexperience, failure to wear a seatbelt are not new. And the people at risk on our roadways are often the same people who create the risk. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that 94% of serious crashes are due to driver error, but we know that driver error often is due to unsafe driver behaviors. So how do we change this behavior? How do we lower the risk of vehicle crashes? We certainly face unprecedented challenges this year with the COVID-19 pandemic, but we must continue to focus on how to save lives on our roadways. We lose approximately 1,000 people every year. For each person, there's a story. For each person, there's a grieving family. Each life lost is a tragedy. I have confidence in all of you. I know you can take your creativity, look at the data, identify the trends, and combine your expertise and resources in a collaborative effort to find good solutions. I've asked Ohio Department of Public Safety Director Tom Stickrath to spearhead the Ohio Traffic Safety Council's efforts and to enhance our collaborative approach. Ohio Department of Transportation Director Jack Marshbanks will also serve on the council as both departments work very closely together and with other traffic safety partners on a regular basis. Together, we will make a greater impact than we can alone. So thank you so very much for your dedication to this very important effort. I am very eager to see the impact the Ohio Traffic Safety Council will have in the future as we all work towards a better, safer Ohio.
Well, again, thanks to our governor, and I think we all know he speaks from the heart when he talks about these issues, so we appreciate that. Let me now turn to Public Safety Assistant Director Karen Huey to walk us through our introductions. Karen?
Good morning. Thank you, Director Stickrath. As indicated, we have a large, diverse group here. So we are going to go through introductions, and I'm going to ask, as I call your name, if you could unmute yourself and just identify the organization that you're with. We'll try to get through our large group today. First, and if you are on the phone, it's *6 to unmute yourself. Our first is John Lee Anderley.
Good morning, all, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this important group. As you heard the governor talk about, 94% of the fatalities that we see on the roads are related to human error, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration supports Ohio in their efforts to address some of those human behaviors. So again, I look forward to some very active and involved discussions, and hopefully we can move the needle in the right direction.
Thank you. Arthur Arnold. All right. James Augustine. Looks like someone's. All right. Rachel Babbage. Tom Balzer.
Yes.
James Augustine is on the meeting on the phone, and I'm an emergency physician and fire EMS medical director from the Dayton, Ohio area.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine. Did Arthur Arnold, was he able to join? I know some people fell off and rejoined. Okay. Moving on to Rachel Babbage. And then Tom Balzer.
Yeah, Tom Balzer, the Ohio Trucking Association.
Great, thank you, Tom. Rick Burt.
Good morning, everyone. I serve as the president and CEO of SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions, representing the 100 chapters in high schools and middle schools we have across the state. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. David Boland.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Bolin. I am the Director of Field Services and Transportation for the Ohio Department of Education.
Thank you, David. Douglas Cade.
Good morning, this is Doug Cade. I'm the Hancock County Engineer representing the County Engineers Association of Ohio.
Thank you, Doug. Meredith Craig.
Hi, yes, Meredith Craig from the Ohio Department of Insurance.
Thank you, Meredith. Bob Enteman. All right. Colonel Richard Fambro.
Good morning, Director. Happy to be here. Colonel Rick Fambro, Ohio State Highway Patrol.
All right. Adam Greenslade.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Adam Greenslade, Director of Government Affairs, Marketing and Communications for the Ohio Turnpike and Infrastructure Commission. Good morning.
Thank you, Adam. Good morning. James Kinnick.
Good morning. I'm the Executive Director of Eastgate Regional Council of Governments, but I'm representing the Ohio Association of Regional Councils, OARC. Thank you.
Good morning. Kenny Colbert. All right. Laura Leffler.
Good morning. I'm Lori Leffler. I'm the Ohio Division Administrator for the Federal Highway Administration here in Columbus, and we support the work that Director Marchbanks does in addressing those engineering factors that we have on our roadways.
All right. Kevin Workman.
Hi, good morning. Kevin Workman, representing the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Our mission is to reduce crashes, fatalities, and injuries resulting from commercial motor vehicles.
Thank you. We heard from Director Marchbanks. Sharon Montgomery. All right. Chief Scott Knoll.
Good morning, Scott Knoll with the City of Blue Ash Police Department, and I'm the representative for the Ohio Association of Chiefs of Police.
Thank you. Phil Renaud. All right. Christopher Runyon. Michael Sayre. Kimberly Schwinn.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Kimberly Schwind. I'm the Senior Manager of Public Affairs at AAA Ohio Auto Club. I am representing AAA and the Ohio Conference of AAA Clubs.
Thank you. Good morning. Chuck Smith. Sandy Spavone. Of course, we heard from Director Stickrath. Dom Taberi.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Kimberly Schwind. I'm the Assistant Manager of Public Affairs at AAA Ohio Auto Club. I am representing AAA and Ohio Conference of AAA Clubs.
Thank you. Thanks, Kim. We got to hear from you twice. That was good. I think we were on Gianna Waylock. No. And finally, John Williams.
Good morning. I'm the Transportation Director at the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. The Public Utilities Commission is considered the lead agency for the Motor Carrier Safety Program, and we work very closely with our partners at the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, as well as our partners over at the Ohio State Highway Patrol. Thanks.
Thank you. And I know there is a number of people that were leaving and coming back on through phone. Is there anyone else that's rejoined us that we missed? All right, very good. Director Stickerath, back to you.
Process. And we do have a few folks I know that are emailing us saying they're still having some trouble getting into the meeting, so hopefully others will be able to join as well. But while going through the names there and all your backgrounds, it's just as I knew, such an impressive group and such a tremendous amount of experience to make an impact here in Ohio. So thank you again. As I mentioned earlier, the Traffic Safety Council will focus on addressing the areas that have the greatest potential to reduce the number of people killed on our roadways. And just this morning before the meeting, I pulled up the latest stats. I wanted to see October's stats, and it strikes me we've now had at Colonel have six straight months of over 100 fatalities. Just terrible, matching almost what we had in 2008. So I mean that alone, I think speaks volumes in terms of our mission. And given that, we're certainly going to place an emphasis on data analysis, and we'll hear some more about that here shortly. But we certainly the analysis, the council feedback from all of you, and best practices to identify our priority areas. And priority areas can include new initiatives or enhancement of an existing project or combining several projects to enhance the overall impact. Each priority area will be assigned a DPS coordinator to organize subcommittee meetings, arrange for resources, provide updates to this council. And priority areas will be reevaluated at our meetings to determine if the area needs continued support or other priority areas can be adopted. We plan to meet quarterly with subcommittee meetings as needed. Meeting invitations will be followed by an email containing the agenda, a feedback survey, and any relevant information to review prior to the meeting. And meeting notes will be emailed following each meeting and will contain the contact information for each priority area coordinator. These coordinators will establish an initial meeting with the council members who expressed an interest in that priority area and those who we believe may be able to contribute to the success of the effort. Our meetings, of course, are open to the public with members of the media encouraged to attend. My office can coordinate all media inquiries related to the council. We'd be glad to play that role, and we'll work with individual council members involved in any area that may be the topic of attention. These coordinators will establish an initial meeting with the council members who. See, Jack, it happens to all of us. But virtual meetings are necessary, unfortunately, at least for the foreseeable future until we can safely get together. So just a little more background on our meetings. What I'd like to do now is, as I mentioned, the data and how critical that is to our work. And I'd like to ask next for a presentation from our statistical analysis unit, specifically asked to hear from our Geographic Information System, our GIS administrator, Christy Phillips, to talk about traffic crash statistics, trends, and OSTATs. Christy?
Yes, hi, thank you. I'm Christy Phillips. I'm with the Statistical Analysis Unit, and I am the GIS System Administrator here. But another one of my roles is I manage all of our internal and public-facing dashboards here. And we thought this would be a really good resource for this council as you're going through your committees and you're trying to look at the data. We thought one of our public-facing dashboards would be a great resource to understand a lot of this crash data. So I'm going to go through our public-facing dashboard that we call OSTATS, which stands for Ohio Statistics and Analytics for Traffic Safety. I know you were all probably given this link and also given the user guide. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Hopefully, can you all see that okay? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through exactly what is OSTATS, how you can kind of get to it and use it and filter the data for your needs. And then I'm going to go through and talk about a lot of the fatal crash trends that we're seeing this year. So first of all, this is OSTATS. This is a great way, if you aren't familiar with dashboards, this is a really good way to actually look at the crash data. You can filter to the data to your specific area, look at a bunch of different variables, and it's just a quick way to explore and analyze the data. And it's very interactive, and we think it's a great resource that you'd be able to use. So to get to OSTATs right now, this is available on the Highway Patrol's website at statepatrol.ohio.gov/OSTATs. Once you get into that system and you open it up, you'll start seeing that there's a lot of crash data in there. We have 5 years plus the current year of crash data that we use to analyze. So we have 2015 through 2020 year to date. Again, we have a lot of different people that come in here and use OSTATs to understand and get insight into the crash data. So we have the general public, the media, a lot of different law enforcement agencies, and of course our safe community partners out there and traffic safety partners. The data source that we use, that is the backbone of OSTATs, is all the crash data that's housed at the Ohio Department of Public Safety in our crash system. Again, Public Safety houses and manages all of the crash data. So this is all crashes from all agencies across Ohio, and that data is submitted to Public Safety. What we are showing on OSTATs, it's important to note that this is only the confirmed crashes in the system. We do go through and we pull in data every day. We go in and look at this data and clean it and map it. But every week we update the data in OSTATs. So if there's any new fatal crashes that come in, or really any severity of crashes, we go and we pull that in and we update this every Monday. So I'm going to quickly go through just a couple slides. If you have not been on OSTATs yet, I just wanted to show you kind of what it looks like and how to maneuver. It's very quickly and user-friendly to go through with just a few clicks to get the data that you're interested in as you are working on your committee. So for instance, this is how the dashboard is laid out here. You see the map, and there's a lot of different variables and filters you can choose from. Obviously you can click on the map and everything, all the filters will change, but I recommend and suggest if you're looking at a specific county or area, you first start with that first drop down at the top. You can select by county and it will zoom in and go right to your county with the data. You can also change the date range. It's very simple. You may want to use that, let's say if you're looking at a holiday period and you wanted to get a sense of what the data look like, but you also can easily at the bottom there click by year if you're only interested in 1 year of data. And then at the top, more on the right-hand side there, you have different ways to view the data. So I am a GIS person, so I love to see the data mapped because I think it's a great way to look at it. So right now, by default, you can see that this map is just counting the number of crashes within the county. So the map type is crash count, but you also have the ability to look at the data by point, which means you can see the data showing you the crashes by severity. So you can drill down and see exactly where these crashes happened on the roadways. And then we also give you the ability to see a density map, which is just like a heat map, right? A weather map. So you can see that high density in those red areas of where the crashes are happening. We also give you the ability to select by NCIC, which is just which agency handled the crash. So if you're a local sheriff's office or a local PD and you'd only like to see the crashes that your agency handled, you can do that in OSTATs. And then this is where we get all the good data, I'd say, over here. These are a lot of the crash variables that we put in here. These are the ones we chose because, you know, working in a statistical analysis unit, we get a lot of requests from a lot of outside agencies and internally here at the Highway Patrol. And these are the types of variables that I work with all the time and I get a lot of questions about. And so if you're interested in how, you know, what these variables mean and how they're defined, I do have that in the user guide that was sent to you in the back of it. There's all the definitions of how we capture this data and what it means to be, you know, an OVI related crash or a commercial related, and that's all defined in there for you. We also have the crashes by hour, by day of week, and by month. So quickly, I'm just going to go through. It's very easy to get the data you're looking for. So for instance, this is a simple example to just show commercial crashes within a certain time period in the month of January. So again, it's very easy to select on your crash variable, commercial crashes. You can select your time period over here, Monday through Friday, and select on January, and all the other data changes. Here's another example from the user guide. Again, this is showing the crashes by severity. This particular example is showing crashes at an intersection. So Portsmouth PD, they wanted to see crashes that happened within a certain radius of an intersection, so they could understand this crash problem and what types of crashes were happening there and when they were happening, so they can better direct their resources. And this last example is just showing you another type of map, those density maps that I talked about. Again, this was just selecting Delaware County, and then it is selecting the density map. And for instance, this is just showing the failure to yield crashes in Delaware County, and you can see those highest concentrations there. So again, you can go in here as you're working on this committee and work within this data, and you can also export it into anything you're using. So in any sort of document, whether it's a PDF file or a PowerPoint. So now that we've given you just a quick overview, so you are comfortable going into OSTATs as you're working with data, I'm just going to go through some of the fatal crash trends that we're seeing right now in Ohio. And right now, this is all done through OSTATs. And you can see here, this is just showing fatal crashes 2015 through 2020 year to date. And what we're seeing is about 39% of our crashes right now, of the fatal crashes, are considered OVI related. And we have about 1 in 3 crashes are speed related. We're showing 4% of fatal crashes as distracted related, and we know here that that's probably underreported. We know that there's limitations on in the crash report, and what we're looking at when we say distracted crash or is anything that's a distraction inside the vehicle. There's other ways we can look at this data in the future as we work on this. We can look at a bunch of different crash variables. We can also look at, other, we have other data sources out there that are related to distracted driving that we could get our hands on. So some other things we see statewide, about 40% are mature drivers, and then about a quarter of them are considered our youthful drivers, which are ages 15 to 24. And about half of the crashes involve an unbelted occupant. About a third of the crashes too occur on Friday or Saturday, which we think is interesting. And when looking at this, I did this about a week or so ago, and at that point in time for 2020 year to date, we had about 867 confirmed fatal crashes, and already we are up about 18 compared to last year. But we know there are an additional at least 80 provisional fatal crashes that have not been confirmed in our system yet. So we know this year we are going to be up on fatal crashes. So when it comes to our next variable, I've just picked a few of the variables that we're interested in here that we look at a lot at public safety. And one of those is the OVI related crashes. So just looking at that specific variable for fatals, we can see that 37% of our OVI related crashes are also speed related. And about 59% have an unbelted occupant. And something that is expected that we noted here, about 39%, almost 40% occur on a Saturday or Sunday in those weekends. And also, as expected, we have about 42% that are in those evening and late morning hours between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. I think so far about 2020 year to date, we have approximately 384 confirmed OVI related fatal crashes. And just something I'd like to note too, you'll see when you look at this that 2019 there was that big jump in fatal crashes. The reason, and it's important to note that, but the reason, there's a couple reasons for that. One is there was a revision to the crash report in that year, and that allows up to 4 different drug results for each person involved in a crash. So we're getting a lot more of that information. And we also have an additional process to supplement alcohol and drug-related crashes for fatals based on the crime lab and coroner's report. So again, for 2020 data, we definitely expect that number to increase. I think right now I said we have about 39% of our OVI-related fatal crashes, or OVI-related. We kind of expect that to jump up to about 45 to 50% as that data continues to be supplemented. Next, we took a deeper look at the speed-related crashes. I think this is interesting that, 47% of them were also OVI related. And another interesting thing I like to point out is typically we see the mature drivers on some of these other variables, you'll see a higher percentage than the youthful drivers. And that makes sense because age 55 plus is a larger age span than 15 to 24. So it's always interesting to me when we see those youthful driver percentages increase higher than mature, and on speed related, that's something that we're seeing here. So about 30% are youthful driver related. Another 58% of our speed related crashes are also have an unbelted occupant. So we know the dangers of having high speeds and also no seatbelt, and I think that's important. And also those speed related crashes, we do see a big increase in our motorcycle related. Motorcycles and speeds, I think in July and August are like the highest 2 months we've had. We're up about 47%. So we had about 47 in 2019 and 69 so far this year. So we are up with speed related and motorcycle crashes. In 2020 year to date, again, we have about 247 confirmed speed-related crashes. Okay, and I know distracted driving is always an issue, and that's another one of the crash problems we always look at. Again, we feel the numbers are low on that and probably underreported, as I mentioned before, but again, going forward, we have other data sets to look at and we can look at other crash severities. Some of the interesting things, about this is about 35% are also OVI related. Mature and youthful are roughly about the same percentage, 36, 38%. 34% occur on Sunday or Monday. And I thought it was very interesting that there's one particular hour that stands out the most for distracted driving crashes. And a good, just over 10% actually occur between the 4 and 5 o'clock hour. So right, when people are starting to go home for the day is where we're seeing that big jump in distracted driving fatal crashes. Okay, and one more separate slide on youthful drivers, because I know this is one we're always interested in studying. And youthful drivers, again, these are for age 15 to 24. And something I'd like to note on this, in OSTATs, this is not necessarily, does not mean that these youthful drivers are at fault in the crash. These are just youthful drivers that were involved in a crash. So that's just something I'd also like to point out. But 37% were also OVI related, and another 37% were speed related. We have 57%, which is a high amount involved, that had an unbelted occupant as well. And we have another 35% that are occurring on Saturday and Sunday. And then we also have a big percentage that are really in these afternoon and evening hours. I don't know if this is because, people are getting out of school or things like that, but between 2 to 7 p.m. there's a really high percentage, and also later in the evening between 9 and 11 p.m. Right now, we have approximately 198 confirmed fatal crashes involving a youthful driver, which is already up 8 from 2019. And again, we have so many of those provisional fatal crashes to keep in mind too, that so this could be an even more of an increase. So I know I went through that very quickly. Again, we hope this will be a good resource for you. I know that this is just a few variables that are on the crash report. this is just a tool for you. So if there's something out there or another data set or another variable you're interested in and you do not have the ability to get that information, or you'd like to see something else mapped, we'd be happy, to help. That's what we're here for. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions about using any of that.
Well, thank you, Christy. That was great information and great data. Christy's a wonderful resource for us here at Public Safety, and I'm glad she had her contact information up there on the screen, and we can put that back up if we need to. But for you, those of you on the council, I appreciate her offering to have you reach out to her directly if you have any questions or anything relating to the data and the numbers and the research. So thanks again, Christy. Next, I'd like to turn again to our Assistant Director, Karen Huey, to kind of talk us through the survey results and those points. Karen? Thank you, Director. Again, as we mentioned, we have a very wide, diverse group on this council. And so in trying to get some of the ideas together that the council brings, the resources, the wide-ranging knowledge and ideas that you have, we did conduct a pre-meeting survey. So we try to focus on the objective to have the greatest impact on reducing the number of people killed on our roadways. You were provided with 5 of the top causative factors in traffic crashes and asked for feedback. Crash statistics, your feedback, emerging trends, and opportunities to have a meaningful impact are critical in establishing our priority areas for the council. So we definitely appreciate your feedback on these questions. So the first question we asked you is, the Ohio Traffic Safety Council will focus on opportunities to have the greatest impact on reducing the number of people killed on Ohio roadways. The following areas are a contributing factor in fatal crashes. Which of these factors are a priority for your organization? While we often focus programming toward a specific problem, crashes often involve multiple factors. Christy had showed us examples of crashes involving alcohol and drugs, speed, and no seatbelt. Our partners who focus on pedestrian and bicycle safety know distracted driving and speed are significant concerns. Our commercial motor vehicle partners understand the impact that large trucks and buses have on crash severity for both at-fault and not-at-fault commercial involved crashes. But we wanted to know for the council as a whole, the level of involvement in each of the significant factors that contribute to fatal crashes. So it's exciting to see that the level of involvement across the board. Through the survey results, we started to see where there is common ground among council members. So the following are the percentages of those who are identified the following factors as a priority. Number 1, distracted driving, 96%. Impaired driving was 63%, and speed was 63%. Inexperienced drivers, 58%, and seatbelt usage was 54%. So you can see a lot of solidarity there. So the next question that we asked was, what is your organization doing to address these issues? So it's impressive to see how much work has been done to improve highway safety. Although time doesn't really permit us to go through everybody's projects, we did want to highlight some of the examples. Many of you understand the value of an informed public and engage in education, training, seminars, and awareness campaigns. Some are actively involved in advocating for the distracted driving legislation. Some are focused on inexperienced drivers with programming, education, and advocating for legislation. Our impaired driving efforts include supporting programming and holding drug driver summits. And finally, there's a lot of activities that are surrounding seatbelt and child passenger safety education, enforcement. I think everybody's engaged in legislation, traffic safety grant administration, trauma care, and safety studies. So we look forward to future meetings, really kind to try to suss out what everybody's working on and how we can bring those efforts together to improve traffic safety. We think this is going to be a really great collaboration because just in talking to all of you, we can understand how engaged you are in your areas. And then our final question was, what would you recommend that the Ohio Traffic Safety Council do collectively to impact the areas you have identified?
And this is what we felt was the most important question of the survey, and the one we need always to reevaluate. The preliminary comments from the survey include things that you feel that collectively the council could do would be more educational efforts to include new drivers, public education, and distracted driving hazards, work to change that culture, to have a cohesive messaging, address the major ongoing crisis with drug impaired driving, the need to focus on pedestrian and bicycle safety, and then if we can work all together to enact legislation such as, again, that focus on primary seatbelt law and of course distracted driving. And then finally, we really want to reach those new drivers. How can we impact those new drivers, and how can we increase the parental involvement? I think this is, again, an exciting day. We have a good group of people. We wanted to try to start, forming a little bit of collaboration and where we can pull together and move forward. So we definitely appreciate everybody participating in the survey to help us identify those priority areas. And that concludes that part. Back to you, Tom.
All right, thank you, Karen, and again, as she said, thanks to all of you for the feedback you provided us. And based on that feedback, as well as based on the data that we continue to hear, and based on the priorities established by Governor DeWine, we've established 4 initial priority areas. And the first priority area is impaired driving. You may recall I had sent out some pre-meeting information on polydrug use in impaired driving cases, and we know there are many aspects to removing impaired drivers from our roadways. And drug impairment presents some challenges, as we know, in detection, evidence collection, testing, prosecution. We've taken some preliminary steps to provide resources to the criminal justice community, but we'll take a coordinated effort to ensure we establish a solid foundation moving forward. And to that end, I have assigned Sergeant Sam Criswell, our drug recognition expert, DRE expert. He's our state coordinator, and he will lead this priority area, and we'll hear from him shortly. The second priority area is youthful drivers. As Karen mentioned, this was established by Governor DeWine very early in his administration. Preparing our young drivers is an immediate need and an investment in the future of traffic safety. And to that end, I have assigned Federal Administrator Felice Moretti from the Ohio Traffic Safety Office, who many of you have had the opportunity to work with over the years. Felice will coordinate this effort. The third priority area is distracted driving. We've been working closely, as Director Marchbanks said, with ODOT on this growing problem resulting in the hands-free legislation. And I've asked our former Chief Legislative Officer here at Public Safety, who has just been promoted to the Governor's Assistant Policy Director, Dan Fitzpatrick, to coordinate our support of this priority. Thank you, Dan. And the last priority area is what I'm calling future initiatives, and it's maybe more comprehensive and flexible, but many areas have the potential to have a significant impact on traffic safety. And so we'd like to highlight ongoing efforts or future aspirations. For example, if your agency is conducting a targeted traffic safety program, or if there is legislation that would be beneficial, we want to be able to inform this council. So we'll be collecting this information as we move forward and asking many of you to present information in future meetings. With that, I'd like to now hear from those 3 coordinators that I mentioned, starting with Sam Criswell. Sam?
Good morning, everyone. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak today. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen here. All right. One of the things that I'm here to talk to you today about is the priority area that the director had identified of impaired driving. And it is an important area, and especially with the DRE program, or the Drug Recognition Expert Program. Just to give you a little bit of background on the program, it has been around for some time, since the 70s, but came into the state of Ohio in 2011 as a statewide program. So we started in 2011. It is a multi multi-agency program that primarily focuses on all forms of impaired driving, especially and specifically polydrug or polycategory impaired driving. And one of the things that the DRE program does is it provides 24/7 support to all law enforcement agencies that have come into contact with an impaired driver. Now, the DRE program is kind of an extension of the IACP, or the International Association of Chiefs of Police. They're the agency that provides the material to administer and run the DRE program within each and every state. And like I said, Ohio came in 2011 and has kind of rocketed to the top of one of the nation's top programs nationwide. With that, this is kind of a breakdown. It just kind of gives you a snapshot of the DRE program as a statewide program. Currently, we have 203 different certified drug recognition experts strategically placed across the state. Of those DREs, there are 104 of them that belong to various police departments. 78 of them are assigned to the Ohio State Highway Patrol, 21 to various sheriff's departments across the, or sheriff's offices across the state. And we collectively represent 89 different law enforcement agencies. We place our DREs across the state and through an extensive selection process in order to be accepted into the DRE program. Through need, and we certainly look at the number of drug driving crashes and drug driving arrests in certain areas, and then selected by need. So one of the things that I think is important in taking on any endeavor or project is that you have to know where you are, where you were, and certainly where you're going. From there, the DRE program has, since starting in 2011, has worked diligently to build up a collection of highly skilled and qualified officers across the state. And continue to train and provide support to the criminal justice community through an extensive call-out network. So essentially anyone that, any department that comes in contact with a drug-impaired driver is able to contact a drug recognition expert for post-arrest support. From there, we've started to build the program out into research and exploring different types of evidence collection methods to better address polydrug use. People use more than one drug, or alcohol and a different drug. So we wanted to make sure that we are providing sound, research-backed methods in order to help the criminal justice community. Additionally, from there, we want to enhance education and training in the criminal justice community to include law enforcement officers, prosecutors, and judges. I used to think that the judges were, part of, the law enforcement team, to say, but that's not actually their role. So it's incumbent upon us to provide any training materials or education from our perspective to judges to help them better decide cases. In addition to that, we also partner with our traffic safety resource prosecutors in order to provide education and training to prosecutors so they know the types of tests and things that officers are doing in order to remove impaired drivers from the roadway, so that once they enter into the courtroom, they're able to ask them the correct questions and be able to extract the information that the officer observed roadside in order to secure a conviction. And then as kind of a segue into that, we also want to, increase collaboration in the criminal justice community to essentially making sure that everyone's working off the same sheet of music. Everyone has the, standardized and systematic is something that we use within the DRE program to ensure that everything that we do is consistent. So if there's a DRE in whatever part of the state, that if there's one in Columbus versus Cleveland versus Cincinnati, Toledo, wherever, that they are standardized and systematic in their process. And we want to ensure that the criminal justice community has all of those tools available to them. One of the things that we started doing back in 2016 was to develop data collection methods to better identify impaired driving trends. We have a system in which DREs are able to enter their evaluations into a system where we're able to extract that data out to better adjust our training methods and as well as identify areas of need. And the last thing is to increase public awareness and education, educating the public on the dangers of impaired driving through both outreach and, social norming. By and large, just about everybody knows that drinking and driving, through a number of outreach campaigns is something that is, frowned upon and you should not do. And there are other methods to get home. But oftentimes we see that drug driving isn't shared in that public awareness. So that's one of the things that we want to address. And I'm here today just to kind of give just a brief background of what the DRE program has done, kind of where we started, the things that we're doing, and looking forward to feedback from the council in any ways that we can work together. It's often said, if you want to go fast, you go alone, and if you want to go far, you go together. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you, Sam. We appreciate all that you and your team do. Very active across the state of Ohio, and appreciate you volunteering to head up this committee. So appreciate it, Sam. Next, we'll hear from our federal administrator. That's, Felice, quite a title. That sounds like president or something like that. But our federal administrator, Felice Moretti. Felice.
Thank you, Director. Good morning to the council. It's good to see all of you, although it's virtual. I'm excited about the opportunity to be involved in the Traffic Safety Council, and especially excited about being able to coordinate the useful driver priority area. I'm going to share my screen with you. And as we look at the data that was shared with from Christy and some of the data here under youthful driver, it's important to note that young drivers represent a disproportionate number of both serious and injury fatal crashes. So as we continue to look through, I want to share some of the highlights, and this is just a very small sampling of the current programs and campaigns the Department of Public Safety has recently implemented and can address as a group under the Traffic Safety Council. All the programs and campaigns that we discuss can be used by the council moving forward. Under education, driver training is housed within the Department of Public Safety. This provides the council with an opportunity to reach all new drivers throughout the driver education process. One program that has shown promise is a partnership with CHOP. CHOP is Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. CHOP is a national leader in young driver research and behavioral studies. With the development of a predictive model that can accurately predict future crash probability, the Ohio program, as we've coined, Ready Test Drive, will provide valuable data and feedback that can assist students, parents, educators, and the council moving forward. This can be discussed in greater detail as we meet later. Outreach. I want to share some of the outreach currently being conducted in the Department of Public Safety. In Ohio, we are very fortunate to have a strong partnership with two of the largest youth-based organizations working to address traffic safety. Both SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions, and FCCLA, Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America, have several high school-based programs across the state currently underway. Both groups are represented on the council, and a special thanks to Sandy and Rick for being members. It's important to note that these two programs complement each other and have a wealth of knowledge working with the young adults. Safe communities. Safe communities are countywide coalitions who focus exclusively on traffic safety. With more than 50 countywide coalitions reaching approximately 85% of Ohio's population, they have an impact on teen safety. Funded through grants provided by the Ohio Department of Public Safety, all safe community programs are required to have a teen component and have been very innovative in reaching young adults. Media. Reaching young drivers and their parents is very difficult. A new partnership with RAD, Recording Artists Against Drunk Driving, in conjunction with the Ohio State University Higher Education Center, we have developed a social media campaign that reaches those targeted 15.5 to 24. More specifically, for this campaign, it's reaching college-aged 18 to 24. This social norming campaign uses music and influencers to promote safe driving habits. Additional funding provided by our partner, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, allows Ohio the opportunity to use a limited amount of funding to purchase media to reach young adults. A new campaign starting in January will target parents with young teens. We know parental involvement is paramount when teaching kids to drive. This campaign will provide parents with resources and tools as they navigate driver training. Safe Community also plays a large role in conducting media outreach at the local level, and they work very closely with driver training, schools, law enforcement, SAD, FCCLA, and law enforcement across the state. I'd like to briefly share, if the video gods are on our side, the new parental involvement TV spot that we will air this January.
Remember those learning to ride a bike years? Of course you do. You were right there, every step of the way. Remember all those talks about good sportsmanship and being a team player? Yep, that was you too. Now your teen is ready for a new challenge, driving. This is a teaching moment and a rite of passage all rolled into one. It may be a little stressful for both of you, but you'll get through it. After all, you've been down this road before. Get tips on teaching teens to drive from the Ohio Department of Public Safety.
These are just a few of the programs underway in Ohio, and I look forward to working with the council and to share more details as we continue to meet in the future. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention our strong relationship with law enforcement across the state. They play an important role in educating young drivers. So again, I'm excited to be part of this council, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to reduce fatalities for young drivers across the state. Director, thank you very much.
Thank you, Felice. Appreciate your report and appreciate you volunteering to head up this subcommittee. Thank you so much. And then now we'll hear from Dan Fitzpatrick. As I mentioned, Dan just recently this week was moved up to the 30th floor of the governor's office. Dan, as you reach that ivory tower on the 30th floor, just please don't forget your friends at Public Safety.
Thank you, Director. I actually haven't even been there yet. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to go there, but I am appreciative of the new opportunity. I'll probably be switching hats back and forth throughout this short presentation. So first, I just want to say, distracted driving is a personal issue for me. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she will be learning to drive later this year. And just watching her walk around the house, she's completely unable to separate herself from her phone. So I am nervous about what that means for her, but I'll do my best and really want to work as well as we can to change the culture around distracted driving. Much of what I'm going to talk about is a recap of what was discussed at the Risk Institute's outstanding event a couple of weeks ago, and many people presented on distracted driving and did an outstanding job. I want to thank Chad Wilson for his presentation, and I'm going to be echoing some of the things that he said. But with 96% of members identifying distracted driving as a priority, I do want to make sure we're at least all starting with some basic information. First, I'm going to talk about what the state's currently doing, and that's leading by example. Earlier this year, Governor DeWine instructed DAS, the Department of Administrative Services, to implement policy to prohibit distracted driving while state employees are working, and that's regardless of whether they are driving a state-owned car or their own personal vehicles. And this goes beyond just using a cell phone. State employees are now prohibited from engaging in a number of activities that by their nature result in distracted driving. And we would encourage all employers to implement similar policies in their organizations. That's a good first step. Also, I want to talk a bit about some of the ongoing education components. The Department of Public Safety provides 7 different programs that address distracted driving and engage over 122,000 drivers every year. These courses include juvenile, commercial, and adult courses that all touch on distracted driving. I'm sure a lot of folks on the call recall House Bill 95, which passed in 2018. That bill created an enhanced fine for violations that occurred while a driver is distracted, and it was a step in the right direction. I think we'd all agree it wasn't even close to enough, but it was the most we could get at that point. One of the components of that bill was the creation of a course that could be taken in lieu of paying the additional $100 fine for distracted driving. The Public Safety Driver Training Program administers that course. It discusses what distracted driving is, the risks and consequences of distracted driving, and combating distracted driving behaviors. Since the course was rolled out, there have been approximately 9,000 people complete the course throughout Ohio, and that number obviously grows every day. And also, we're going to continue to educate the public through the funding of safe community programs around the state, which continue to educate teens and adults about the hazards of distracted driving every day. And that involves coalitions of schools, government officials, engineers, service organizations, healthcare providers, many of the same groups that are on this council. In 2019, Safe Community Programs conducted 900 events focused on distracted driving, which reached approximately 1.5 million people with over 52 million impressions across radio, TV, the web, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And Director Marchbanks highlighted distracted driving corridors in his earlier remarks. This was actually a concept created by a post commander with the Highway Patrol in Northeast Ohio, which is spreading across the state. Really appreciate the work of the Highway Patrol and ODOT partnering in that ongoing effort. And sometimes educating the public also takes the form of enforcement. So since 2015, the Ohio State Highway Patrol troopers have written almost 17,000 citations that have included a charge of distracted driving. And every year, troopers participate in 6 state trooper projects that focus on distracted driving. Troopers from Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio combine efforts to raise awareness of the dangers of distracted driving. But there's only so much we can do until we change Ohio's laws. I think many of the folks on the council were with us earlier this year, February 13th, when Governor DeWine came to public safety to announce that he would be working to introduce a bill to create a hands-free law in Ohio. A few days later, that bill became Senate Bill 285. And unfortunately, I don't have to say what happened very shortly after that event. Obviously, with the pandemic, the legislative process really ground to a halt. There were no hearings for months. The bill was introduced on February 18th, and it didn't receive a hearing until May. And then it received another hearing on May 27th, and then another long break before we were able to have another hearing in September. So I want to talk quickly about what that bill does, and then kind of where we're going in the next couple of months. So the bill makes using a cell phone a primary offense, which is great because the current law is only a secondary offense and only applies to texting while driving, which is very difficult to enforce. The bill also establishes 3 new criminal prohibitions related to distracted driving. The first is a new aggravated vehicular homicide offense and vehicular assault offenses, which apply when a person causes the death or serious physical harm to a person while driving when distracted or while unlawfully using a wireless electronic device. Second, the bill creates the offense of vehicular harm, which applies when a person causes harm other than serious physical harm to a person or serious physical harm to property while driving when distracted. So the bill had a great hearing on May 27th. A number on this slide that you can see, we had proponent testimony from all of these folks. Many of you are on this call as well. And then in September, on September 22nd, there was an opponent testimony hearing, and there was only opponent testimony received from the Ohio Public Defender's Office, which expressed concerns only with some of the increased penalties in the bill, things that we could certainly work on if we needed to. So now that the election is in the process of wrapping up and the legislature is going to be moving into what is commonly referred to as the lame duck session, there's going to be a very, very brief period of time here, probably 3, maybe 4 weeks, where a whirlwind of legislative activity will occur. And we're still hopeful that Senate Bill 285 can pass before the end of the year. If it doesn't, as many of you understand, the bill would need to be reintroduced early next year and begin the legislative process anew. But we really need your help in the next few weeks. If we can go to the next slide. So as we're talking to legislators, we've been talking about what's happened in other states, and this is a slide that's been effective. Almost all legislators I've talked to acknowledge that there's a problem, and many of them are supportive of Senate Bill 285. In fact, I haven't had a single legislator tell me they are opposed to it. But the bill is only going to pass if Ohioans are clamoring for it. There's going to be hundreds of other bills currently pending, and only the most urgent bills will be heard in the lame duck session. And it's really up to all of us to create and sustain that sense of urgency that will get this bill over the finish line. But this slide is one that we're showing legislators, and Ohio frequently is not a state that leads out on major changes like this. Legislators like to see that it's been successful in other states, and we can demonstrate double-digit success in decreases in fatalities in states that have passed similar hands-free laws. So that's one I would encourage, as you're talking to legislators, you really show them these statistics. Next slide, please, Joe. This is the Ohio Senate Local Government, Public Safety, and Veterans Affairs Committee. You can't probably see the names that clearly, but you can find it on the Senate's website. If you have a connection to any of these legislators, or frankly any senators, but specifically this group, and unless the bill can get out of committee, it really doesn't have much of a future. So talking to Chair Manning, talking to members of this committee, and expressing why you support the bill is a great first step. We will keep in touch with all of the members of the council in the coming weeks to let you know if the bill is moving, and if so, what the next steps are, and who else you need to talk to help move the bill forward. So that is my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the presentation and appreciate all of your work. I really do think that that a strength of this council will be our ability to coalesce together with this and other types of legislation in the months and years ahead. So thank you. We've had a few comments, I think, or chats. I'm going to ask Staff Lieutenant Herb Homan from our Traffic Safety Office to kind of facilitate whatever discussion we might have from the chat room, and we certainly have some time left before we close out. So if you have any last-minute comments or chats, either get into the chat room or raise your hand, and then we'll be able to call on you and have you unmute with a comment. But Herb, can you jump in?
Thank you, Director. A couple comments, and I'll read them because I don't know that the public that's listening in can see the chat box other than the members can. The first one comes from a comment from Kimberly Schwinn, our partner at AAA, who points out the value of the data and gives a shout out to Christy. What a nice job she did with that. And I know that Kimberly's a power user of the OSTAF program, so she sees the value in that as well. And I would encourage everybody, if they haven't got into that system, to take a look at it. And Christy is a valuable resource if you need assistance with that. The second comment comes from Director Bolin from the Department of Education, who points out some of the efforts that they're looking at in the area of school bus safety. The Department of Education is looking at school bus driver training, school bus safety at bus stops, school bus highway safety, and use of public transportation for school students, and school bus crash analysis as well. So obviously they're deeply engaged in that part, and I appreciate that comment, Director Bolin. So those are the two. If we have any others that want to join in or raise their hand, we'd be happy to address that.
Thank you, Staff Lieutenant Homan. Any other comments, chats, or hand raising, or any really hard questions for Director Marchbanks? We'd take those as well. Anything else coming through, Herb? All right. Well, then let me go ahead and thank you for those comments that we did receive, and obviously you're always welcome to stay in touch with myself and our team here. And let's just move on quickly to next steps. And so Carrie from my office will be sending out any necessary meeting information along with contact information for each of the priority area coordinators. So you'll get that. Please feel free to reach out to the coordinators as you feel you can contribute to those efforts, and we'll also be reaching out to some of you who have expressed an interest through your pre-service or pre-meeting survey. The priority area coordinators will be setting up the subcommittee meetings in the near future, and if you have your pencil ready for the 2021 meetings, and we'll send this to you as well. But our intent right now is to meet again on February 10th, May 5th. August 4th and November 3rd. So if you want to put those down, save the date, February 10th, May 5, August 4, and November 3rd. And we'll send formal meeting invitations as we get closer to those quarterly meetings. So as we wrap up today, just let me again extend my sincere appreciation to all of you for your time and your commitment to saving lives. Governor DeWine recognizes we're at a critical point in time, and he's in full support of our efforts to improve the safety of our roadways. Your efforts, our efforts, will have a positive impact both today and for many years to come. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out directly to me, to any of our staff here at Public Safety. I'm sure Director Marchbanks says the same thing, and he's nodding his head yes with our colleagues at ODOT as well. So again, thank you, and we will adjourn the meeting. Talk to you soon.